Anyway, after a slew of technical difficulties, coming at you from the 517, this is Noah, at approximately 93 miles with this piece of shit computer. In the 734 is my good friend Josh. Josh, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. However, we're running out of that disk space I was talking about with our shitty computer.
You know, yeah, you gotta fix that. You gotta do something about that.
It'll be alright. What are we talking about today, Noah?
Alright. That's my question to you, usually, but, we're talking about space tourism today.
Oh, yeah, we are. Where do you want to start here?
You already ruined the flow of what we usually have going on.
I did, but usually... Never mind. Alright. I was gonna...
You tried to take the reins, and it just didn't go well for you.
I'm gonna start with some basic things going on with space tourism, like, I don't know, the fundamentals, I guess.
Kind of basic things.
Fundamentals. We got some categories here. It's how, like, news articles and other things categorize spaceflight progress, I guess. We got 3 different types of space flights for tourists. Orbital.
Okay.
We got orbital tourism, which is when spacecraft from Earth launches and, like, lands somewhere in orbit, like the ISS.
I question where else they would launch from.
Maybe we're talking like moon tourism. Just specifying, alright? Trying to be
moon
thorough.
Tourism? I think the only place we could really launch from is Earth initially.
I suppose. But anyway, it's when you land a craft somewhere in orbit, such as like a resort, potentially in the future. There'd be resorts up there. But for now, it's the ISS. We have suborbital spaceflight, which is when it doesn't complete an orbit and lands where it was launched, so it'll pretty much just be in space for like a few minutes, and then they come down. And then there's lunar spaceflight, which is where a craft orbits the moon and then returns to Earth.
Well, alright then.
2 of these have been done. One of these is not. I'm sure you can guess which one is not.
I could guess, but why don't you just tell me?
We haven't been around the moon. Well, a tourist hasn't been around the moon.
I mean, like, the tourists haven't been
around the moon.
Because I know thus far there have been 9 public citizens in space, but only 7 have actually visited the International Space Center.
Yeah, the first one was Dennis Tito in 2001. But,
yes, he was.
Do you know who, Guy Laliberte. You know who that is?
Yeah.
Do you know who that is?
I mean, because I did the research, yeah, but why don't you tell me?
Alright, well, he's the most recent International Space Station space tourist. He's from Canada.
Most recent? How recent are we talking?
I believe it was in 2009. There hasn't been, like, a space tourist since 2009.
Yes.
Until...
Not one that's visited the space station.
Right. Well, Guy Laliberte founded Cirque du Soleil in 1984, which it was one of those things where I, like, knew what it was, but I didn't, like, know what it was. You hear it in, like, casino commercials, probably. But it's a worldwide circus seen by 90 million people. He used to perform on the streets as an accordion player, stilt walker, and fire eater. And he's also a world-famous poker player. I just thought he was an interesting man. Because this picture on Wikipedia is him playing poker.
To go to space, you better be, because it costs millions of dollars to get there.
Yeah. Not worth it, in my opinion.
It's really not. What else could I use that money for, though? Because I'm not that creative. I probably just want someone to take me to space, I guess.
I guess it's a good one-time thing.
Those, like, zero-gravity flights you can take?
Yeah, I think that'd do it for me.
They do the parabolas, but it costs like $5,000 per person.
That sounds about right. You're talking about the ones where they like fly up really high and then they just like drop.
Yeah, they do like 12 parabolas, go up real high, and then dip real quick, and you got like 30 seconds of weightlessness.
30 seconds.
Not really space tourism. Don't know if it's worth my $5,000, but I feel like I'd probably do that versus actually going to space for a couple days.
Certainly cheaper and probably a lot safer. But anyway, we got like 4 companies doing stuff.
What other information do you think needs to be laid out for us to go in depth with this?
Get a little lay of the land, I got what do you got for what needs to be laid out? I just got like companies.
Well, I didn't really think that anything needed to be laid out, which is why I'm asking you what you thought needed to be laid out.
I just didn't know where we were with space tourism and like how not far we
Well,
are.
where are we with space tourism?
Not very far. It hasn't happened since '09, really. But okay, here's something. On June 7th, 2019, NASA announced that starting this year in 2020, that they will plan to start allowing private astronauts to go to the ISS again. So that kind of brings back the space tourism thing, at least moving forward. And it will be $35,000 a day per person. I feel like there should be.
But it will not be NASA that it won't be NASA that's actually sending these people up.
No.
They'll be using the private
Yeah,
companies.
it's NASA allowing it. I think they're using like SpaceX, their Dragon thing, which actually takes off tomorrow. I think it's the same one.
Well, what they have going on is there's like 3 or 4 companies that have contracts with NASA that allow them to launch into space to the ISS, and then allows them to have extra seats for passengers that they are allowed to rent out.
I think is dumb because like NASA has so much leverage or none at all. You think about it, like who says NASA is in charge of space launches? Like if a company can get to space, you think NASA's really going to be like, no, you don't meet the requirements or something.
I mean, like, them and the Russians pretty much run the ISS, so they kind of have... Because they have to run the computers to, like, open the doors and shit.
Oh, I get it if they're going...
They kind of have veto power.
I get it if they're going to the ISS, but if we're talking, like, space launches, just any sort of space launch, they shouldn't have to go through NASA. It should be like, if you can do it, do it.
Well, they can't... They don't have to go through NASA, according to... I'll get into some law stuff for you. Very lengthy title on this one, but... The Treaty on Principles Governing the Activities of States in the Exploration and Use of Outer Space, including the Moon and other celestial bodies.
Not catchy.
Otherwise known as the Outer... Yeah, not at all. Otherwise known as the Outer Space Treaty of 1967. It essentially says that, like, anybody who is in compliance with the treaty is allowed to go into space and use it for whatever they want to. The only stipulations are, like, no nuclear weapons in space, no weapons of mass destruction, or, like, you can't use space for war. That's, like, the only thing.
Donald Trump walks in the room.
Well, you see, something about Trump that I do have. He is trying to privatize the International Space Station.
I don't know how that will go over.
Well, what he wants to do is... By 2025 is his plan, but that kind of is contingent on him being reelected. Which we'll see how that goes.
And people allowing him to do things.
He's gotten by so far.
Somewhat.
Anyway, he plans to privatize it by 2025, but it costs $1.2 billion a year to maintain it, so, like, whatever company buys it out is going to have to pay that every year, and I don't think anyone's going to be able to do that.
I think we need to ask ourselves, do we really... Are we getting our money's worth out of the ISS? Isn't that important to keep up there? It's so old. I'm sure the costs of maintenance are probably surpassing its value at this point.
I mean, we're not really, like, as a government, as a country, we're not really doing anything with it. I know Russia still goes up there all the time, though.
Yeah, I mean, like, we send people, but I'm pretty sure we just, like, charter flights with the Russians when they go. We're like, yeah, can we tag along? Yeah, no problem.
Well, yeah, 'cause, even all the space tourists that did go up in between 2001 and 2009 had to go through Russia. None of those were American enterprises.
No. Russia's space company is called Roscosmos, and the government very much runs it. They kind of like front as a private company, but they like are most certainly ran by the government.
Roscosmos.
Yeah.
Are usually the people that, like, train the actual astronauts that are going to the ISS. And they currently have a partnership with Space Adventures, which is another company for tourism. And they'll, like, go through a 6-week training program with the people that pay for tickets on Space Adventures.
Okay. So they're just doing the training? Roscosmos is?
Yeah, they train people, and I don't know if they have their own launch site. I know most of the time they'll go through JFK anyway.
What I read is that, like, they're called the Russian Space Agency, but it's also just Roscosmos. Like, when you click on Roscosmos' Wikipedia, it takes you right to Russian Space Agency. So it's like they're fronting as a private company, but they're really not.
Well, they are technically a private company, but it's Russia, so
That's right.
different meanings for
Yeah.
what that means.
Well, that should be private, but we're gonna cut off all your funds otherwise.
And what their partner, Space Adventures, is an American business.
Yeah, I think they're based in like Virginia or something. Which surprised it wasn't in Florida or Texas.
Way back in 2007, they offered advance booking for a lunar mission they were going to do. They were offering them for $100 million a seat. They would take them up for 5 days, go around the moon, have a grand old time.
Were they gonna do it through like NASA or what?
No, they're their own private company. They weren't going to use NASA. They were going to launch from JFK if they got permission to do so.
Oh, I didn't know Space Adventures had like their own ships lined up. I thought they just like were like the tourism people that.
As far as like I said, they're teaming up with the Russian company,
Okay,
Roscosmos.
I missed that part of that.
And they were going to piggyback off them because they were just essentially selling the tickets and advertising stuff.
Your tour guides through space, but from Earth.
But yeah, they sold these seats for $100 million, and they would fly up 4 people to low orbit, is what they announced this year, because back in 2007 they planned an entire lunar mission around the moon, which of course failed because they didn't do it.
We would have heard about that. What were you finding for prices on these? Because I found like anywhere from like 20 to 25 million, and that's for like 10-day trips in space. We haven't been to the moon, so obviously that drives the cost up.
A lot of the prices I found were... It depends on what kind of mission you're doing, really. For like the 5-day ones, I was seeing between 20 and a couple $100 million.
That first guy, Dennis Tito, he was the first orbital tourist flight in 2001, and I think he's the only one to do orbital? No, that's not true, because Guy Laliberté.
Well, I'm pretty sure anybody who went to the International Space Station pretty much
That
did.
counts as orbital, yeah. But during this flight, he was just supposed to be suborbital, and like they were just gonna like, go in space for a little while, maybe orbit a little bit, but they wouldn't like land at the ISS. But he somehow convinced the Russians chartering his flight that instead of being suborbital, he would get on the ISS. This happened mid-voyage.
She's like, hey man, I know we're already up here, and the space station's like right there. What if we just, drifted over a little bit?
I think like the pilot said, hey, we're gonna head back into Earth's atmosphere now, and he was like, but hold on, but hear me out. What if we went over there?
Now what if
I don't know.
we just kept going?
I don't know how long the trip was originally supposed to be, but he was able to get it to 10 days, and that's good job, Dennis Tito.
Well, I thought he was supposed to be up there for like 5 to 7 days. I don't know. Because I thought his original plan was to go to the ISS, which is what most people that were going off of Roscosmos were doing.
I just found whatever article that said he was changing their plans midair, which you think with like a space flight, they would be like really strict to the itinerary. You know the company Virgin Mobile? Well, I guess it's the Virgin Group, but it's Virgin Mobile's like their popular one, but like there's a whole group of things that they do.
Yeah.
Well, they do their own space program. It's called Virgin Galactic. But I was looking at this.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I didn't know about how many things that the Virgin Group included. It's all owned by Richard Branson, who I knew that name, but I didn't know what he did. He's in the commercials sometimes. They have 30 different companies, and it's just all random shit.
Virgin Galactic sends people up to the edge of space, but not quite into space.
Yeah, and that's all they really want to do. They just want to keep doing suborbital flights consistently, which you can't really be mad at that.
They don't really... I don't think they've done any yet, but...
No.
I know they sell tickets for $250,000 a pop, and 650 ticket holders so far.
Sure, they're fine with that. They're not going to probably have anything to send them up in for... I think space...
I don't know. I kind of think... everyone is kind of into this now. It's more popular in the media than it has been in the past. Except, I suppose when we first sent a man to the moon, everyone's like, soon enough we'll all be getting to go to the moon. And that was, 80 years ago.
Well, I found a couple little tidbits about where space tourism was like 40 years ago. In the 80s, there was talk of the government putting a cabin in its like space shuttles that could seat 72 passengers as a purely money-making scheme. $60,000 a person.
Yeah, and they were just gonna like clear out the cargo bay of the space shuttle.
Yeah, which I think is, it's only for money, but maybe someone else. I don't know. It seemed kind of.
I mean, if you can get like all those rich fucks to just start throwing out their money, I wouldn't be too mad about it.
Yeah, it just seems like we were so early in space exploration to be like taking people up there, but it was the 80s. It was a different time.
Even with the reusable space shuttle, they were thinking about doing the same thing. More recently, in like the 2000s.
Yeah, when that got. The Challenger disaster is what kind of halted all these things. The teacher in space thing that blew up on the
I know what you're
launch.
talking about.
Yeah. Well, that canceled pretty much any developing tourist flights to space that happened in January 1986.
Challenger didn't blow up on launch, by the way.
It blew up before it hit the atmosphere, I guess.
Yeah, it blew up as it hit the atmosphere.
Yeah, that was, I guess, the issue. In the 90s, these programs started to get going again, where they were gonna try taking people up in space as often as they could. Then the Columbia disaster happened in 2003, which, keep in mind of the timeline, we've already been to space with tourists. Dennis Tito went up already. But this didn't really halt it by very much. Russia didn't really care, and they only delayed their flights by a couple of years, and they just kept doing it again. Which I think is kind of funny in a Russian sense.
Hang on, so Challenger happened what year?
1986.
1986? When did the Columbia disaster happen?
That was 2003.
2003. So, 17 years apart? Is that about right?
Yeah. That's math.
Is that good math?
Good math.
So, that means this year, we're pretty much due for another one, right?
Well, SpaceX is launching tomorrow. On May 27th.
Hey man, this one doesn't... Yeah, and this episode doesn't come out until Monday, so...
Well, this is gonna not age well.
We'll see what happens.
This will not age well if things go south, but You
know what, Josh? I'm calling it right now. It's gonna fail.
It's gonna fail. Oh,
it's gonna fail. It's got to.
It has to. We're 17 years away.
Yeah, we're due up.
Oh no. Well, we'll clip this.
I'm leaving it in until I know for sure.
It kind of makes me sad though that it's gonna happen tomorrow. I like SpaceX. They're who I'm rooting for out of the four main companies. Elon Musk. How can you not?
Oh, you're good. I was gonna say you're good boy Elon Musk.
Good Elon Musk vibes. But that was founded in 2002. Elon Musk is the most I don't know, out there kind of leader of the space tourism thing. He wants to colonize Mars and things like this, and I think his main goal right now though
he's been pulling back recently.
He has been, but I read today actually he founded it to put plants on Mars, and I guess that's changed into reducing space transportation costs and enable the colonization of Mars. But let's see how he's doing. I think he has a launch planned for 2024 or something for Mars.
Yeah, he does, for a space mission out there. And they have their own contract with NASA to go to the ISS whenever they want to.
Okay. I think they're one of the companies that's ferrying people to the ISS starting in 2020. But coronavirus and knows what they're doing. I hope that wouldn't affect Corona. Well, I guess it would if you got astronauts with coronavirus going to the ISS. Not a good look.
Yeah, I know SpaceX, they wanted to have a lunar mission, around the moon, going.
Yeah.
They wanted that to happen in 2018, and it didn't happen. So they pushed it back to 2023 when they hope it'll happen, and they're charging $170 million a person.
Oh, Elon.
And then they got their crewed flight to Mars by 2024, but they wanted to send out a probe to Mars to make sure everything went smoothly first.
Probably smart.
I think they're supposed to do that next year, or maybe 2022.
Okay. Did you ever come across reading about the Space Island Group?
I didn't.
No. Well, this was in the canceled plan.
Well, neither did I.
This was in the canceled plan section of space tourism world, I guess. They proposed having 20,000 people on their space island by 2020. What is a space island, you may ask? It is like a...
I got a vague idea, but go ahead.
It's like a cartoony space station, kind of. Like, you think they'd be like, oh yeah, we'll just put 20,000 people in space station. But it's actually like, they want to create like a dome in space and have a bunch of people being in the dome. But I visited their website, which was conveniently linked, and it hasn't been updated since 2012, but the website looks itself kind of give me those early 2000s vibes. This is no longer active.
I imagine they haven't updated it since giving up.
Yeah, which I assume was around 2012. They have like a quote from somebody on it. Let me read who it was. Arthur C. Clarke supports the Space Island Group. He was like a writer on 2001: A Space Odyssey, and he said like, oh yeah, me and Stanley Kubrick and I depicted a commercial space plane delivering passengers to a huge wheel-shaped space station. With all these like hotels and video phone booths and stuff like that, and he keeps going. And then he still believes today that this is why I'm supporting the Space Island Group, based in Southern California. They have a detailed plan to privately finance the construction of wheel-shaped space resorts and commercial spaceports. This is pinned on their homepage.
What are their plans for artificial gravity in these domes? Or are they just going to have a bunch of people floating around?
I don't know. Maybe they only did this detailed plan with, like, investors or something, because it's not really clear on their website. They have, like, company info and, like, vehicle plans, but then they have, like, news, and that's it, and contact. P.O. Box. A toll-free call number. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work.
I got my doubts.
I kind of want to submit something, though, just to see, like, you cast the line, you see if you get a bite.
I guarantee there's no one there to get a bite from.
Gonna doubt it.
They've all gone home or moved to a different company.
There are so many space companies that fail that like, you just don't hear about. Like, you got the main four. I didn't mention the other one yet. Blue Origin, that is founded by Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos?
Yeah. Have you seen their
Amazon
logo?
boy?
Have you seen their logo?
I haven't.
You think for a space company trying to, like, push the line, push the envelope a little bit here, they're trying to make space tourism a thing. They have like a clip art blue feather logo. It looks horrible.
Jeff Bezos couldn't shell out.
No, like if you look at it right now, I could make that logo. Their goal.
Could you?
I could. Like clip art, boom, blue logo, throw it up, do the paint bucket, fill it in as all blue. Like there's no creative design. They don't even outline like the feather base or anything. It's just like a solid blue feather, and I hate it. Jeff Bezos, like the other couple companies here, just wants to make like cheaper space flight for everybody.
Well, that's what I kind of think is going to happen with so many people trying to do it. It's kind of like
it's got to lower the price.
Cell phone used to cost you like $3,000, and now it costs you like a couple hundred.
Yeah.
If everyone's working towards the same technology, it's got to go down.
Right. Waiting for that monopoly in space to happen. I guess NASA kind of already did that.
It's not a private company, though.
Right.
To, like, send you into space.
It's true. Maybe the space wars won't start with the governments, but they'll start with, like, these private companies. Like, what's the government going to do if these companies, like, outpace them with space technology?
Well, I don't think any government agency is even trying anymore. I think they're willing to just let it be privatized, because I don't think they care anymore.
Well, NASA kind of doesn't care anymore, but, like, we got Space Force.
Well, NASA's part of the government.
NASA doesn't care to, like, do anything,
but
Trump is like, yo, Space Force, we need it. So if we got that going on, where these companies outpace Space Force, which probably will, we're going to have, like, not control of what's outside of Earth. I don't know, just something to think about.
Yeah, there's a lot of legal issues behind this. And I know Trump going with his privatization of the International Space Station, he wanted to use that $1.2 billion for something, but he didn't ever expand on that thought. He didn't tell us what he wanted to do with it.
like most of his thoughts.
It definitely had something to do with the Space Force, but who knows what it was.
I saw he was at like whatever Air Force graduation or whatever. Like they finished training camp and he was taking like some of the top recruits from that class and making them like Space Force lieutenants. I wonder if that's like a draft system or like people actually volunteer to do that.
I feel like you have to. If it's another branch of the military, you get to like pick what you go into. You don't get to get drafted unless it's a time of war. So
not drafted, but like selected to do this, and like they'll make it so worth your while that you kind of like have to do Space Force.
I feel like it's definitely more of an offer than anything else. Like you have your chance to deny.
I'm sure you have your chance, but I feel like they sweeten the deal so much that like you almost have to accept it.
I don't know how sweet that deal could be though.
Guess it also depends on the.
What do you have to do right now? Because nobody's up in space at all.
Trump wants it done.
Well, if he makes it to another term, we'll see where he goes with it.
I was just watching like random CNN for 5 minutes, and Mike Pence was giving a speech about something that had nothing to do with the Space Force, and he kind of just threw it in there as like a coin phrase. He's like, just so everyone knows this is still happening. It just
so you guys know, we didn't forget about it. We're still doing it. It's fine.
It's just such a fucking sitcom every time I hear those two words in a speech about.
I think we needed a better name than Space Force.
Yeah, like it sounds like a meme, probably because it immediately became a meme. But you know, you got the Air Force. Yeah. That's the same principles, but that's not ridiculous.
But like that was established so long ago, and that was a cool word to use.
Yeah. Like Coast Guard, I think everyone kind of pokes their fun at the Coast Guard, but you know, the Army's cool. We got the Navy, that's cool. Marines, that's cool.
I mean, Navy, all of those are very general terms anyway, though. Like, those go back medieval times. What we've never had the opportunity for is like a space program for another military branch, and we had the opportunity in the 21st century to say something about it, and we went with Space Force.
I'm trying to like use the other ones as like a guideline, like the Marines. What if they were like the Galactics or something? That sounds dumb now that I say it out loud, but
that's really awful.
It is really awful, but it's not really any worse than Space Force. Galaxy Force, that's just cool.
I think that is significantly worse. That sounds really nerdy.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like a D&D
instill fear in anybody.
D&D club that meets on Wednesdays.
I mean, if we're trying to be threatening in outer space, that's not the name I want to go with.
Good point. Fair point. I think there's a Steve Carell movie coming out about the Space Force. It is out, actually. I think it's on Netflix. I saw a trailer just randomly came up in my feed.
Somebody like taped his picture over an actual Space Force member's like official picture in DC.
Nice. I just had one more tidbit about space tourism that I wanted to bring up. Did you read about the Golden Spike Company?
I sure didn't.
Sure didn't. It was another one of those canceled projects in that section there. But it was a claimed to be an American space transport startup active from 2010 to 2013. It was founded by two former NASA employees. One was like a director of something. The other was like some administrator. So they're kind of like big names. They know what they're doing. But the website was quietly taken offline in 2015 after they hit $19,450 of its $240,000 goal. They did an Indiegogo campaign.
I don't think we're going to get any more money.
They were like trying to defend themselves, the people. The Scientific American wrote that their plan ranks among the most audacious privately funded space exploration missions. And one of the founders was like, if NASA wants a ride, we'd be glad to put them on our railroad. Because they're like, their name is like a play on the final spike in the
Yeah. Like, after they hit that $19,000 goal, someone was just like, hey man, let's just take the money and go.
Well, that's what goes back to the website was quietly taken offline. But what they wanted to do was take private commercial space transportation, To the surface of the moon.
I gotcha.
But
I don't know if they really had a good plan for that.
yeah, I couldn't find anything about their detailed plan. They do have like a obscure Wikipedia page, and their website's not even like archived anywhere, anything like that. But like one of the guys was like 75 years old when the company was founded. What's this guy gonna do? He was the guy that said the railroad quote. Sure, the other guy was.
He was just trying to get into space to like bury himself. He just wanted to die up there.
I'm sure the other guy was like watching whatever interview setting he was doing that at, and was like, "Come on, he's too fucking old."
It's like Reagan in his final years.
Yeah, just this old man babbling random shit on the stage.
That's what Joe Biden's been doing.
Yeah, it's been some good meme content.
You know, it can only get worse from here, right?
I think that quote usually
Isn't a
goes,
good thing.
"Can't get worse," but it's not true.
No, it's only gonna get
It's
worse.
not true.
I don't think there's a good way for this to go. I don't think we can come back from this.
No, it's over.
On the bright side, there's just so many options to get into space these days.
Let's just get up, get out, Noah.
Huh?
Get up and get out. We're going to space. We're staying. Not that there's anywhere to stay. I don't know why the definition of orbital spaceflight included like resort and hotel, not space station, as like their main points. Because we have those up there, right?
Well, let me tell you about some companies that are trying to get some hotels up there.
Let's hear about it.
Because there are a few. Axiom Space Station, the one who intends to buy the space station when it becomes privatized, if it becomes privatized. They're gonna build their own private space station and then connect it to the International Space Station. And when it goes private, they're taking that shit over.
Seems unnecessary to
So
buy up
they're
the
gonna have-
ISS and then just like connect their new thing to it. I guess that's like a
Well, that's what
workstation
they-
in space, so I guess that's helpful.
Well, I think they plan to, like, use theirs, attach it to the International Space Station, and then essentially just double the amount of space they had for the price of one.
Okay. See the logic, I guess.
They don't have any prices yet for their build, but it's gonna be nifty, I'm sure.
They should start an Indiegogo campaign. Maybe the Golden Spike guys will come.
Might raise just enough money.
They'll get what's left of that $19,450.
Boy, if I got a Kickstarter for you.
Like, that's not even a good scheme plan. Like, if you're just gonna be two NASA former guys and like, say, hey, we're gonna do this big thing as like a new company, but you're actually just trying to get money, this wasn't the way to go about it, because they didn't even come close. Like, $19,450, I make that at my shitty retail job.
I mean, if you're starting with nothing, and you make 19 grand in, like, a short amount of time, seems pretty good to me.
It took them 3 years, though.
3 years, 19 grand. 6.5 grand a year.
2 former NASA employees.
I'm sure they were well off enough. They just needed, like, McDonald's money or something.
I'm assuming this Golden Spike idea was just a huge loss for them, and that $19,000 was like their only compensation prize for sucking. Well, I don't imagine starting a company of that scale is cheap.
Well, definitely not, because everyone else is taking millions of dollars from people to get them into space. And other companies are taking hundreds of thousands of dollars to get people near space. But not quite in it.
It's bullshit, I tell you.
Kinda is, because according to that treaty I mentioned earlier, space officially is 62 miles above sea level, and most companies that are sending you into, like, low orbit are only getting you to, like, 100,000 feet, 300,000 feet.
Terrible gas mileage. Those spacecraft, they're real gas hogs.
Well, some of the companies are not using rocket ships, Josh.
Well, yeah, I mean, SpaceX
They're
used
using-
a car.
What do you mean they used a car?
There's a car in space right now with the guy in it. I don't remember what it was called. It was like, it was just called Starship.
Yeah, but how do you think they got the car up there?
I don't know. No, I would assume with the rocket.
With a fucking rocket ship.
Nah, man. You ever make those big ramps in like old? I guess Halo. Halo's a good example. Just try to go make the biggest ramp you can, and fly as high as you can off it. That's what SpaceX is doing.
I think there's some structural problems with your plan. Zero to Infinity. It's a Spanish company that's going to use a helium balloon to lift 4 passengers at a time up to about 118,000 feet. And although technically not in space because it only goes 20 miles up, they're still going to charge people a shit ton of money to get them up that high.
It's just a high quality air balloon.
Pretty much. Only it's going to be cold and you'll be stuck in a metal container.
I don't like their name either. Zero to Infinity sounds really gimmicky.
If you're a space tourist company and you're trying to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's okay to be gimmicky.
That's true. And we got Space Adventures over here doing what they do.
Getting sued by a Japanese businessman.
Really?
Yep. They took $21 million from the guy after telling him they would send him to space. I think they said that about the lunar mission, but they didn't refund his money after not going through with that plan.
Oh, well, they deserve to be sued.
I don't actually know if he won the suit.
Space Adventures.
Or if it's probably still pending. Because this wasn't too long ago.
Okay, I was going to say how many years ago. Speaking of rich Asian men, I think SpaceX's first, I think it's the lunar space flight where they're going to orbit the moon. I think it's some
Yeah, he's going to take some artists with him.
Yeah, some Japanese billionaire.
Yeah.
I guess his name's pretty big because
really?
It's I just looked at SpaceX on Google and his picture came up and it wasn't even me trying to find that specific thing. Space tour is apparently big news when something insignificant happens, like tomorrow, for example.
I think his entire mission of going up to space was to bring a bunch of artists with him to inspire them so that they could bring their art back down and revolutionize a new age in art. Or some bullshit like that.
Shouldn't be the first initiative. There was a plan like that in the 90s. That was one of those programs that got silenced. It was the same program, actually, that it was the teacher in space thing. They just renamed it in the 90s to, artist in space. Gotta cover that up.
Yeah.
But that got canceled when Columbia...
Nothing like tragedy to cancel a well-thought-out plan. If we still had Reagan as president, maybe we would have made it farther.
We'd have, what was Space Wars? That's what he had, right? That was his
yeah,
plan.
Which technically wouldn't have violated that treaty, because what he wanted to do was send a laser into space to stop nuclear weapons, which was a deterrent and not a weapon, so I guess it kind of danced around that whole stipulation.
Reagan does, as he will. I think that was all unscripted, too. He didn't tell anybody about it before the speech.
Well, it was all a bluff, just to get Russia to bankrupt
Well, I know it was a
themselves.
bluff, but, it's a bluff that he didn't talk to anybody else about. All the military leaders that shit their pants when they realized they might have, a space laser now in the works coming.
Yeah, lasers.
Guys, we gotta get to work. Love that one.
Some scientist was sipping his coffee, and when he was watching the news, he's like, "Ah, shit! Sounds like something I have to deal with."
His phone rings the second after watching it. Oh shit!
Oh no! Panic attack.
I'm glad a couple paragraphs ruined Russia's entire economy.
I don't know if it was the paragraphs that ruined their economy.
Well, the bluff worked, and they poured a lot of money into making something to defend
But you think some of their spies would have been like, is this guy for real?
But if that is what was happening, their leaders
should
didn't
have done the
care.
research first.
Yeah, they really should have.
Anyway, I still got a few more hotel businesses to rattle off here. You got Worldview Enterprises. 100,000 feet, $75,000 for a 5-hour trip. They can take up 6 passengers. Huh?
Better be a good 5 hours. Not for billionaires, I guess.
Well, they're only getting up about 20 miles, which is still 40-some miles away from actual outer space. You can see the curvature of the Earth and all, and get some good views, but I don't know. I want to get to space. I want to get to outer space if I'm paying 75 grand.
Yeah, if you're going halfway there, you might as well finish it off.
I don't know if I want a balloon to take me there, especially if I have to parachute down.
Oh, this is the balloon?
If that's my only option.
This is the balloon people?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a different balloon people.
There's more balloon people?
Yeah, there was the Spanish company, and then there's also this company, Worldview Enterprises.
Goddamn Spanish, thinking we can ride weather balloons. I know that's not what their thing is. But...
Then you got Bigelow Aerospace, plan on using an expandable space station for hotels, guests, and such. Launched a couple models back in 2006, 2007. Docked one of them with the ISS in 2016. Plan to have guests not too long from now.
Surprised they weren't talked about more. What was that one called?
Bigelow Aerospace.
Bigelow?
Yes.
Where's that company based out of?
Not entirely sure.
Sounds American.
One that I know for sure that's based out of California is Orion Span. They plan to launch their own space station by 2021. Be ready for guests in 2022. It's going to cost you $9.5 million for a 12-day stay.
I'm sure most of these are going to fall flat.
Well, the one Axiom Space that I mentioned earlier, they already have a few things up in the air. And so does Bigelow.
Okay. Maybe they don't get as much attention because they're not owned by, like, celebrity billionaires.
Nope. That's the issue these days. You gotta know a guy.
Star power.
You gotta have a good publicist.
Oh, yeah. PR relations are very important. In conclusion, what are your thoughts on space tourism? Like, would you do it if you had the money? Like, say let's say you have $1 billion and you are a semi-successful businessman. Maybe you won the lottery. I don't know. Are you spending it on space?
Got a lot of hypotheticals here. I don't like any of them. I don't want to be a businessman. I don't want to win the lottery.
All right.
But no, I'm not spending it on space. However, I obtained this substantial amount of money.
Okay. What sweetens the deal for you where you're like, okay, I will do that since you have the capabilities to help me do that? Is there like do you want to land on the moon? Do you want to like go around Mars? I don't know. It's up to you.
I'm content staying on the ground.
Okay. I think
there's nothing that can sweeten the deal for me.
Nothing. I think that's about where I stand. I do like the go see the curvature of the Earth thing. I think that's pretty cool, but I don't think I need anything more than that.
You can do that from a plane.
Right.
You only really need to hit about 20,000 feet to see the curvature of the Earth.
Most airlines go higher than that. I think every single flight.
Most flights will hit 35,000
right.
feet. I mean, commercial airlines. If you're like flying in a Cessna airplane, you can only reach like 16,000 feet.
Pussy shit.
Well, this has been Blindside Podcast.
Well, cue the outro music.
One of these days we'll actually have outro music.
One of these days, but for now,
it'll just be one out of tune piano key.
Me and Sarah were watching this guy doing like a camper rebuild, but he was like a really funny dad. Like he had the most dad puns, and I don't know, he was just entertaining. But he like in the middle of his projects would just buy random instruments he found at a thrift store and like play them over compilations of him working, and I just thought it was a beautiful creation for a guy that didn't want to be entertaining to start.
Just gotta go out, buy some random shit, do what you can with it.
I got a piano right next to me actually, but not that I really know what I'm doing with it. I'll compose something.
I too have a piano right next to me.
What?
There's your outro music.
Was there one in that house when we went? I don't remember seeing a piano.
No, this is mine.
When did you get a piano?
I've had a piano for a really long time. I just never learned how to play it.
I didn't know you took it with you though.
Why would you? You didn't help me move.
It's true. I didn't think you would take it with you then. Oh,
I don't think reading it is that hard.
I wanted to bring this up. I thought about it yesterday. Spring break 2021. We go to Civil War sites dressed as Civil War soldiers.
People already do that as reenactors.
Not as reenactors though, just like tourists wearing Civil War shit.
Well, people are gonna come up to us and assume that we're reenactors. I just don't want to deal with that.
Civil War sites though as a base is not that bad of an idea, but I don't know if there's enough of them.
I'm a national park man all the way, so
a lot of those are near national parks. Like you're in a good part of the country, I guess, as far as the eastern side of the country goes.
Now we gotta go find one in Nevada or something that had nothing to do with the Civil War.
Dress the Civil War soldiers.
Yes.
Seems we've lost ourselves, friend.
I've lost the battlefield.
There were actually...
Have you seen Bull Run?
There were battalions in California that Lincoln had ready to go if the war ever came out far west. Learned that the other day.
Well, yeah, because I think that's what Alcatraz was used for. Supposedly, it was a Civil War base, and I'm what were they doing out there? What did they need that for?
The same thing the radio people during Pearl Harbor were doing, expecting nothing. You gotta be ready.
Trust me, guys, this is necessary.
Sounds like we had the wrong guys in the wrong time period out there. The Civil War guys were in those radio towers. Who knows what could have happened?
They'd be freaking the fuck out.
Nah, they'd smell those planes coming, reported early. Even though they actually did report it early.
I mean, they'd just be the Civil War dudes be so freaked out by, technology and airplanes.
I'm not saying we just drop them in there. The type of people.
Which side are you referring to?
No, not pro-slavery.
So are you sure?
I was referring to their grit, Noah. Their grit and determination to be stationed in Alcatraz while the war is a thousand miles away. Not their views on the enslavement of human beings.
I'm sure that would play a great factor in their ability to detect airplanes, though.
They'd smell those Asians coming in.
Yeah, those southern racists really be able to get those Japanese.
They have all the races down by smell or I guess with Asian people it'd be well, they don't smell white, they don't smell black. I'm gonna stop talking.
What could it be? You should definitely stop. Well, we already said outro music, but
said it twice and we were kind of talking over each other both